Sometimes, love speaks louder in silence than in words. Sometimes, a single gown can hold decades of memory, sacrifice, and truth, and tonight, that gown would speak. Clara Bennett, a 50-year-old seamstress from Charleston, had devoted her life to raising her daughter Isabella alone after her husband's untimely death. She had poured every ounce of love, every sleepless night, and every sacrifice into giving Isabella a future far beyond their humble means. Tonight, that life of silent devotion was about to be tested. The wedding day had arrived. Clara had lovingly sewn Isabella's gown, hoping it would be a symbol of their bond. But when she presented it, her daughter rejected it cruelly, dismissing it as something poor people wear. She threw the dress into the trash, shattering Clara's heart. Determined not to let the humiliation define her, Clara retrieved the gown and spent the following nights meticulously transforming it. She adorned it with crystals, lace, and hidden handwritten notes recounting her sacrifices, Isabella's childhood memories, and quiet lessons of love. The gown had become more than a dress. It had become a letter of dignity, a testament to a mother's unwavering love. On the day of the wedding, Clara entered the grand Charleston Harbor Hotel ballroom carrying the transformed gown. Guests turned in surprise as she approached the center of the room, her presence commanding attention without a word. The dress shimmered under the chandeliers, revealing both beauty and a silent story. She spoke gently but firmly. This gown was not sewn for vanity, but for love. For every sleepless night, every small sacrifice, every moment I worked so you could fly. Do not forget where you came from, Isabella. The shame is in forgetting who taught you how to soar. The room hushed. Isabella stared at her mother, realizing for the first time the depth of devotion she had overlooked. Clara's quiet dignity, stitched into every fold of the gown, had spoken louder than words ever could. Part to the morning after the wedding, Clara returned to her quiet studio. The transformed gown lay carefully folded on the table, its hidden notes still waiting to be discovered. Each stitch represented a memory, long nights of sewing, skipped meals, and tireless work to ensure Isabella had every opportunity she deserved. Isabella had followed her mother, unable to rest, drawn by the weight of the gown and what it represented. Clara watched her from across the room as she hesitated, finally stepping closer. Mom, Isabella began, her voice uncertain. I didn't understand. I never realized what you went through for me. Clara placed a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. You're seeing it now, and that's what matters. Love is not measured by recognition but by endurance. Together, they unfolded the gown. Isabella's eyes widened as she discovered the hidden notes. Each word she read revealed a layer of her mother's sacrifice she had never imagined. Nights Clara went without to provide for her. Mornings she woke before dawn to prepare Isabella for school. And every small act of love that had gone unnoticed, all were woven into the fabric. Isabella felt a mix of remorse and awe. She realized her pride and ambition had blinded her to the depth of her mother's love. Clara, seeing her daughter's emotions, smiled softly. She did not need apologies. The recognition and understanding in Isabella's eyes were enough. Clara folded the gown carefully and placed it back in the box. This dress is a story of our lives, she said. It carries more than fabric and thread. It carries lessons of patience, sacrifice, and love. Keep that in your heart. The studio, filled with the soft hum of sunlight through the windows, felt warmer, more alive. A bridge had begun to form between mother and daughter, stitched together by understanding and the quiet power of shared memories. Days passed since the wedding, and the quiet tension between Clara and Isabella lingered, now tinged with curiosity and reflection rather than resentment. Isabella spent hours in the studio, observing her mother's hands glide over the fabric, the careful stitches, and the meticulous attention to detail. She had never truly appreciated the dedication that went into every seam, every fold, and every note hidden in the gowns Clara created. Mom, how do you do it? Isabella asked one afternoon, watching Clara thread a needle with practiced ease. Do what? Clara replied gently, without looking up. Balance everything. Life, work, love, and still create something so beautiful. Clara paused, finally looking at her daughter. It's not about balance, Isabella. It's about persistence, patience, and love. Every stitch is a choice, and every choice matters. Life is like this fabric. It takes care, and sometimes it takes sacrifice. But the result can be something extraordinary. Isabella nodded, feeling the weight of her mother's words. She picked up a piece of fabric and tried to follow her mother's technique. Her hands trembled, but Clara guided her patiently, correcting angles, showing how small adjustments could transform the entire piece. As they worked, Isabella discovered more hidden notes in the lining of other gowns Clara had made over the years. Each note was a small revelation, a memory, a lesson, or a quiet expression of love. She realized that her mother's devotion had never been limited to material sacrifice. Clara had invested her heart and wisdom into every garment she had touched, leaving traces of her love for anyone willing to see. By the end of the day, Isabella felt a profound shift within herself. Pride and ambition no longer seemed so important. The realization that her mother's strength and resilience had shaped not only her life but countless others settled in her mind and heart. She finally understood that true love often exists quietly in the small, persistent acts that go unseen but leave a lasting impact. Clara watched her daughter's growth silently, recognizing that this moment, Isabella's awakening, was another step toward the reconciliation she had long hoped for. Clara spent the following days teaching Isabella not only the techniques of sewing but also the subtle lessons embedded in each stitch. Every fold, every seam, every carefully hidden note in a gown carried a story of sacrifice, patience, and resilience. Isabella began to understand that her mother's love had never been loud or demanding. It had been constant, quiet, and unwavering. Watching Clara work, she noticed how much thought went into every detail: the weight of the fabric, the placement of embellishments, the hidden messages sewn into the linings. "Mom, why do you hide these notes?" Isabella asked one afternoon. Clara looked at her daughter with soft eyes. "Because sometimes the most important things can't be seen immediately. They have to be discovered. Life works the same way. Not all lessons are obvious at first. Some are hidden until you're ready to understand." Isabella reached for the lining of a gown Clara had recently completed. Her fingers brushed over tiny, delicate words stitched in neat handwriting. Each message told a story of perseverance, love, and quiet victories over hardship. She realized that her mother's life had been full of unseen battles, sacrifices she had never acknowledged, and lessons that had shaped Isabella long before she recognized them. That evening, Isabella sat quietly by the window, reflecting on the newfound understanding of her mother. The pride that had once driven her now felt small compared to the magnitude of Clara's devotion. She felt remorse for her past actions but also a sense of hope, that it was never too late to learn, grow, and heal. Clara, watching her daughter from across the room, felt a quiet satisfaction. The gown, the hidden notes, and the patient teaching had begun to bridge the distance between them. The foundation of respect and understanding was forming, one gentle lesson at a time. Clara Bennett stood in the center of the Charleston Harbor Hotel ballroom, the transformed gown held firmly in her hands. The guests were silent, but the tension that had built over months of ignored sacrifices now hovered palpably in the room. Isabella, her daughter, felt her chest tighten, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down on her for the first time. Clara approached her daughter carefully, her eyes soft but firm. "Isabella," she said quietly, "all these years I have worked quietly, sometimes unseen, always hoping you would understand. This dress, it carries everything I could not say. Look at it. Feel it." Isabella's hands shook as she lifted the gown, discovering the hidden notes stitched into the lining. One by one, she read the fragments of memories, the quiet sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the lessons whispered through fabric and thread. Tears rolled down her cheeks as remorse began to replace pride. The room watched as the young woman, who had once dismissed her mother's love, finally saw it in its full depth. She looked at Clara with eyes that now reflected understanding and gratitude. "Mom, I had no idea," Isabella whispered. "I'm so sorry. I never understood." Clara smiled gently, tears threatening but held back. "You are seeing it now, and that is enough for tonight. What matters is that you remember, love is not shown in grand gestures alone, but in quiet, consistent devotion." At that moment, a familiar face approached from the crowd. Margaret Ellison, the mother of the groom, stepped forward, her expression clouded with guilt. She hesitated, then spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "Clara, I must confess something. Decades ago, I was young, proud, and thoughtless. I humiliated someone very much like you in my youth. Seeing you now, I feel the weight of those mistakes. Please forgive me." Clara paused, absorbing this revelation. The connection between past and present, between generations, was becoming clear. The very pride and arrogance that had once caused harm were now confronting the consequences of time and reflection. "We all carry our burdens," Clara said softly, "but it is never too late to make amends. What matters is what we do next." The room seemed to breathe with relief. Guests whispered among themselves, moved not only by Clara's dignity but by the ripple of honesty and reconciliation that had begun. Isabella clutched the gown closer, finally understanding the depth of her mother's sacrifices and the true meaning of family, humility, and resilience. That night, Clara and Isabella shared a quiet moment away from the crowd. The mother and daughter, once distant and divided by pride and misunderstanding, now found a bridge built on patience, courage, and love. The gown had spoken, louder than words, deeper than arguments, and more enduring than any fleeting resentment, and as Clara returned the gown to its careful folds, she felt a calm she hadn't known in years. She had reclaimed her dignity, shared her story, and, most importantly, helped her daughter see the strength and love that had always been there, stitched invisibly into every moment of her life. The morning after the wedding, the Charleston Harbor Hotel was quiet. Clara returned to her small studio, the gown carefully folded and stored. Isabella, unable to sleep, had followed her mother, unsure what she wanted to say but needing to be near her. Clara turned from the window and saw her daughter standing in the doorway. Her expression was a mixture of remorse, hesitation, and hope. "Mom," Isabella began softly, "I've read the notes. Every word. I can't believe I never noticed, never understood. I was so focused on what I wanted that I ignored everything you did for me." Clara walked toward her, placing a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. "You are learning now, and that is what matters. Love is not measured by recognition but by its endurance." Isabella sank into a chair, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry for how I treated you, for throwing the dress away. I see now the life you built for me, the sacrifices you made. I was blind." Clara smiled, a tear escaping her own eye. "It's not about blame, Isabella. It's about understanding. What matters is that we move forward together." The two embraced, a long, quiet hug that carried years of unspoken words, regret, and newfound love. Clara felt a sense of relief and fulfillment she had not known in decades. Her daughter finally saw the depth of her devotion, and the wound left by rejection was beginning to heal. Later that day, a visitor arrived unexpectedly. Margaret Ellison, the groom's mother, came with a tentative smile. "Clara," she said, "I owe you an apology. Years ago, I acted foolishly and caused pain that I did not understand at the time. Seeing you now, I realize how wrong I was. Please forgive me." Clara nodded. "We all grow and learn with time, Margaret. What matters is what we do next." Margaret reached out and handed Clara an envelope. Inside was a letter she had kept for decades, one that connected Clara's late husband, Edward, to a family business dispute she had once been involved in. Reading it, Clara discovered that Edward had wanted her to forgive Margaret, seeing her past arrogance as a product of her upbringing rather than malice. The revelation added another layer to the night's lessons, that understanding and forgiveness were as important as love and sacrifice. Isabella watched quietly as her mother read the letter, the expression on Clara's face softening. She realized that life's lessons were often complex, involving more than one generation, and that her mother had always approached each challenge with courage and dignity. Clara folded the letter carefully, placing it in a drawer along with the gown. "This is not just about me or you, Isabella. It's about the legacy we carry and how we pass it on," she said gently. "Remember, love is quiet, persistent, and sometimes hidden, but it shapes everything." Isabella nodded, absorbing the weight of her mother's words. "I want to learn from you, Mom. I want to be part of this legacy." For the first time in years, Clara felt truly at peace. Her life's work in both love and sacrifice had not been in vain. She had shared it, and now, her daughter was ready to embrace it. The days after the wedding were filled with quiet reflection and small steps toward rebuilding the bond between Clara and Isabella. Clara reopened her studio, her sewing machine humming gently as sunlight filtered through the curtains. The air smelled faintly of fabric and thread, a comforting scent that reminded her of decades of dedication and love. Isabella spent hours by her mother's side, observing, asking questions, and learning the craft that had been her mother's life. She was eager to understand not just the technical skill, but the care and patience that went into every stitch. Every fold of fabric, every careful knot, every note hidden inside a garment became a lesson in love, humility, and resilience. One afternoon, as Clara worked on a new dress for a client, Isabella asked, "Mom, can we start a space where other women can learn too? Where they can find their worth through sewing like you taught me?" Clara paused, her hands resting on the machine. The idea resonated deeply. Her life had always been about giving, often in silence. Now, she could extend that gift to others, creating a lasting impact beyond her own family. "Yes, Isabella," Clara said, smiling. "We can call it Threads of Hope, a place to teach women that skill, Patience and love can build not just garments, but confidence, dignity, and independence. The two worked together to clean and organize the studio, setting up workstations, stocking materials, and designing a small curriculum for future students. Each day brought new energy, new purpose, and a growing sense of fulfillment. The gown that had once been a point of tension now symbolized the bridge between past struggles and future opportunities. One afternoon, a woman approached the studio timidly. She had heard of Clara's skill and her reputation for helping young women find their voice. She wanted to learn, and just like that, Clara realized the true power of her gift. Not just the beauty of the garments she created, but the lives she could touch. One stitch at a time. Isabella watched as her mother patiently guided the newcomer's hands, correcting angles, suggesting better folds, and encouraging confidence. She realized that Clara's strength went far beyond the sewing machine. It was in her patience, her understanding, and the quiet way she uplifted others. As the sun set over Charleston, the studio glowed warmly with hope and laughter. Threads of fabric intertwined with threads of life, each stitch carrying a story of resilience, love, and transformation. Clara looked at Isabella and felt an overwhelming sense of pride, not only for her daughter's growth but for the community they were beginning to build together. In that moment, the past pain and misunderstanding seemed distant. What remained was the promise of a future shaped by love, patience, and the knowledge that every act of care could become a legacy. Weeks passed and threads of hope began to flourish. Women from all over Charleston came to learn, each carrying her own story of struggle, resilience, and ambition. Clara guided them with quiet authority, her decades of experience and empathy shaping not only their skills but their confidence. Isabella, once blinded by pride and ambition, had grown into a thoughtful, attentive partner in the studio. She helped coordinate classes, mentored students, and learned the value of patience, humility, and listening. She had discovered a side of herself that she never knew existed, one shaped by love, respect, and the strength of her mother's example. One afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived. It was Margaret Ellison, the mother of Isabella's husband. She had come bearing gifts, not gold or jewels but gratitude. "Clara," she said, her voice trembling, "I have seen the lives you've touched. I wanted to contribute to your studio, to honor your work and make amends for my past mistakes." Clara smiled gently, feeling the weight of decades lifted in that moment. "Thank you, Margaret, but the greatest gift is the change we see in our students, and in our own families. That is reward enough." Margaret insisted, however, and with Clara's agreement, a small fund was established to expand the studio, purchase better materials, and support young women who could not afford tuition. Threads of Hope was becoming more than a sewing school. It was a sanctuary of empowerment, a place where dignity and skill intertwined. Meanwhile, Isabella discovered the final hidden notes in the original wedding gown, messages her mother had left for her future, reminders of love, patience, and humility. Reading them, she realized the depth of Clara's foresight and the way she had silently prepared her for life. Long before Isabella understood its lessons, "Mom," Isabella said, her voice choked with emotion, "you've taught me more than I could have ever imagined. Not just about sewing, but about life, love, and strength. I want to carry this forward." Clara placed her hand over her daughter's, "And you will. Every act of love, every stitch you sew carries on our legacy. Never forget that." That evening, as the sun set over Charleston, the studio glowed with warmth. Laughter, chatter, and the soft hum of sewing machines filled the air. Clara watched as her daughter guided a young student's hands, correcting her angles gently, just as she had taught Isabella. She realized that life was a circle of giving, that love, sacrifice, and patience are lessons passed down through generations, stitched invisibly into the fabric of family and community. And as the city lights shimmered on the water, Clara felt an unspoken sense of fulfillment. She had reclaimed her dignity, reconciled with her daughter, empowered countless women, and left a legacy that would endure far beyond her lifetime. Months had passed since the studio had opened, and Threads of Hope had become a beacon for women seeking not just skill, but confidence and dignity. Clara moved through the bustling workspace with quiet authority, guiding hands, sharing wisdom, and offering encouragement. Isabella, now confident and empathetic, had become an integral part of the studio's mission, bridging generations and inspiring young women to believe in themselves. One afternoon, Clara received a letter in the mail. It was from a local organization recognizing her work with underprivileged women, praising her dedication and resilience. The words struck her deeply. Decades of sacrifice, humiliation, and quiet toil finally acknowledged publicly. She felt a mixture of pride and humility, knowing that the true reward had always been the lives she touched and the bond she rebuilt with her daughter that evening. Isabella approached her mother with a quiet smile. "Mom, do you realize how far we've come? From that night of the wedding to this, it's like the whole world has shifted. But the greatest change is in me." Clara nodded, her eyes softening. "Yes, my dear, you've grown, and together, we've built something that will outlast both of us." Threads of Hope isn't just a studio, it's a place where women find themselves, where they learn that dignity, love, and resilience can't be bought. They must be earned, nurtured, and shared. Isabella hugged her mother tightly, feeling the weight of understanding finally settle in her heart. "I never want to forget this, Mom. I want to pass it forward, just like you've passed it to me." Clara smiled faintly, placing a hand on Isabella's shoulder. "And you will. That is the true legacy of our lives, not what we earn or possess, but what we teach, what we give, and what we leave behind in hearts and minds." Later that night, Clara found herself alone in the studio, folding the original wedding gown and reflecting on the journey it had inspired. She remembered the rejection, the heartbreak, and the silent determination that had fueled her transformation. Every stitch, every note, every hidden message had led to this moment, a moment of recognition, reconciliation, and renewal. She touched the red thread she had kept since Isabella's childhood, a symbolic reminder of connection, love, and the invisible bonds that hold families together. That thread, she realized, was more than fabric. It was a testament to resilience, sacrifice, and the enduring power of a mother's love. Clara took a deep breath, looking out the window at the Charleston skyline. The city sparkled like the crystals on the gown, reflecting the countless lives she had touched. She felt a quiet contentment, the kind that comes from knowing that one's life, no matter the hardships or humiliation endured, has made a difference, and in that stillness, she knew the final lesson was complete, that love, patience, and courage could overcome pride, ignorance, and time, that the legacy of a mother's heart could shape generations and inspire countless others to believe in themselves. The sun rose over Charleston, casting golden light through the windows of Threads of Hope. The studio, alive with the gentle hum of sewing machines and laughter, had become more than a place of work. It was a sanctuary, a school of life, and a testament to the power of perseverance and love. Clara Bennett, now more serene than ever, walked among her students, offering guidance with quiet patience. Isabella moved alongside her, sharing tips, encouragement, and stories of her own growth. Together, they formed a bridge between generations, a living embodiment of the lessons that had begun with a single wedding gown and a mother's silent devotion. One afternoon, as the studio buzzed with activity, a framed red thread caught Clara's eye. It was the same red thread she had used to sew Isabella's first dress decades ago. She touched it gently, recalling the countless nights of sacrifice, the struggles, the heartbreak, and the moments of quiet joy. It was a thread that symbolized connection between mother and daughter, past and future, love and legacy. Clara turned to Isabella. "Do you see this?" she asked, holding up the thread. "This is more than just a piece of string. It's every lesson, every sacrifice, every act of love we've sewn into our lives. Never forget it." Isabella smiled, her eyes glistening. "I'll remember, Mom, and I'll pass it on. To my children, to my students, to anyone who needs to learn that love and resilience are stitched quietly but last forever." That evening, as the city lights reflected on the harbor, Clara received a small award from the local community, a recognition for her dedication, skill, and the lives she had transformed. She accepted it gracefully, knowing that the real reward had always been intangible, the renewed bond with her daughter, the empowerment of countless women, and the legacy of dignity and patience she had nurtured. Later, as Isabella tucked her young niece, Nia, into bed, she whispered, "This red thread is for sewing things you can't always see, broken hearts, hidden dreams, love that endures." Nia held the thread carefully, understanding in her own innocent way the strength woven into it. Clara watched from the doorway, a soft smile on her face. Her life had been filled with trials, sacrifices, and moments of pain, but it had culminated in a legacy stronger than she had ever imagined. Every stitch she had sewn, every lesson she had imparted, every note she had hidden in fabric, had shaped the future of her family and community. And as she finally sat down at her sewing machine, Clara realized something profound. Love is most powerful not when shouted, but when sewn quietly, patiently, and with unwavering devotion. The threads of her life, carefully interwoven with those of her daughter and students, had created a tapestry of resilience, forgiveness, and hope, one that would endure for generations to come. The story concluded not with words of grandeur, but with the silent strength of a mother's heart, the courage to forgive, and the knowledge that true legacy is stitched, not bought.